It was a red letter day for the leader of another republic, Italy. Prime Minister Enrico Letta was faced by just one troublemaker, albeit a very prominent one, the former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, who has threatened all week to bring down the government by putting his own interests ahead of his country. Berlusconi wanted to pull his party from the ruling coalition, in part to stop it from taking away his Senate seat because of his tax fraud conviction. Now, in July, I spoke with Prime Minister Letta here in London, and I asked him whether this move was something that he was worried about.
I'm very confident the political situation will be stable, because we know very well that the Italian stability, political stability, will be very important for the Italian recovery.
So, of course, Letta was shocked by Berlusconi's move last weekend. But perhaps he's had the last laugh when Berlusconi's own party turned against him at the last minute, forcing him into a U-turn and backing Letta in a confidence vote, which happened earlier today. So the fragile government survives while Berlusconi's political days are numbered. He's soon meant to be starting to serve his sentence. And Italy, of course, can ill afford any more instability as it struggles to drag itself out of the worst recession it's had since World War II. And nobody knows a Berlusconi power play quite like the former Prime Minister Mario Monti, a distinguished economist who ran Italy during the thick of the financial crisis. Monti's government was also threatened by Berlusconi, who wanted to topple it. And Mario Monti joins me now from Rome. Mr. Monti, thank you very much for being with me. Welcome again to this program. So, do you think that Letta called Berlusconi's bluff?
It was a widely perceived threat, the one raised by Mr. Berlusconi. Certainly, Italy cannot afford a government crisis at this time. So the solution is a bit tortuous, but good. Namely, a part of Mr. Berlusconi's party split from his leadership and pledged to support the government. And in order to avoid coming out publicly with this split, in the very end of the parliamentary debate today, Mr. Berlusconi himself declared sticking to the vote of confidence to the Letta government, so that he, in a sense, put up a brave face. The PDL party is united against, but certainly everybody got the sense that Mr. Berlusconi lost out.
Well, let me ask you, you know, Italy can ill afford these kinds of political shenanigans. What has the instability, the turmoil, already cost the country in terms of not just voter confidence, but investor confidence and all the things that need to happen to keep Italy's economy on the rails?
Well, instability has cost Italy a lot. That was particularly the case a couple of years ago on the occasion of the last Berlusconi government. One should say the last Berlusconi government so far, maybe, but I think that was really the last one, when the financial situation of Italy was a real mess and Italy was risking bringing down the whole of the Eurozone. Then we put in place a very tough austerity program under my government, and now Mr. Letta's government is doing well in shifting gradually to a less restrictive policy and introducing some structural reforms. The pace of introducing these structural reforms, like in the labor markets or liberalization, is not fast enough in my view, although we support the Letta government. Certainly, we could not afford in Italy to have weeks, if not months, lost in terms of concrete policy actions, quarreling about Mr. Berlusconi's position vis-à-vis the government.
Well, let me ask you, because let me just ask you a quick question. Sorry, Mr. Monti, I'm struck by what you said. Maybe the last Berlusconi government, or so far. So are you actually thinking and suggesting that he may have a future again as head of a government? Do you not think that he's going to serve his sentence, which apparently is either a year under house arrest or community service?
No, I don't believe that he will again be in government. And I must say it was my government which introduced the law taking away from Parliament people who had received certain time to serve or other measures of restrictions because of corruption and other crimes. So I definitely do not believe that this time round Mr. Berlusconi can escape his fate. But I was saying that just because he has been pronounced defeated and out of politics many, many times in the past, he has given proof of an incredible resilience, but I believe this time he will not.
Let me just talk now about one of the most serious things that's threatening Italy and also the Eurozone in general in terms of employment. If I point at this map, you can see the catastrophic unemployment figure for Italy amongst the youth, which is just over 40%. And if I point again, all these figures pop up showing that around the Eurozone, look at the youth unemployment, 52% in Croatia, 61% in Greece, Spain it's 56%. Of course, in Germany, it's fantastic. It's only 7.7%. I want to play you something that Prime Minister Letta told me about youth unemployment when I talked to him in July.
The main nightmare really is the future of our youth. To see how many Italians are going out of Italy is a sort of exodus. A great generation leaving my country.
So that, he said, is his nightmare, and I'm sure it's everybody's nightmare. Even the Pope today spoke about that, but saying basically the young need work and hope, but they have neither one nor the other, and they have been crushed by the present. Mario Monti, as a technocrat who is in there charged with fixing your government and fixing the economy, what can you say to give young people even a smidgen of hope when it comes to employment?
Well, this is a response that the whole of Europe has to work out, and rather quickly, I must say. We definitely need more growth in Europe, and with that also more growth in Italy. But in the case of Italy and a few other countries, there are more specific structural problems that prevent youth employment even on those years when there is a pickup in demand and economic activity. That is, we have a system of labor laws and practices which is sort of overprotective vis-à-vis those who do have a job, who are in the labor market, and thus making entrance into the labor market by the excluded, in particular the youth, even more difficult than elsewhere. So I think the two problems on which Italy needs to focus to give concrete responses to the youth who are without a job are, number one, changes in the structure of the labor market and its laws, and then a huge focus on increasing the country's competitiveness, because well before the financial crisis of the last few years, it's about 15 years that Italy grows at only half the growth rate, already modest, of the whole of the Eurozone, and that is because our competitiveness is not enough.
Mr. Monti, you know, you talk about these reforms that have to be solidified. Do you think that this political crisis, and now that the government has survived, offers a fresh start, or are we going to see what we've seen over and again? People like yourself, people like Prime Minister Letta, who have tried to do their best, tried to institutionalize these reforms, and yet been entangled over and again by vetoes from their coalition partners and resistance from the opposition.
Well, the advantage of a grand coalition like the one with which I've been working and the one which Mr. Letta chairs, the advantage of that is that all the main parties are in it. In particular, the PD, the main party on the left, and the PDL, Mr. Berlusconi's party in this case, the main party on the right. But I think the Prime Minister who runs such a grand coalition needs to be pushing on the political parties. He needs to present them with packages of measures which are good for the country, even though they displease both constituencies on the right and on the left. And I strongly hope that Mr. Letta, now that he has brilliantly overcome this difficult trap that Mr. Berlusconi had been preparing for him, will become more forthcoming, more daring, more ready to expose to the public opinion in the country the tricks and delaying games that the two main parties too often make use of.
Mario Monti, thank you so much for joining me from Rome tonight.